Okay, welcome everyone. This is Treasure Troves of the Past, digging into cataloging local history, and Mary Cornell will be your presenter. She will take your questions at the end. So if you open up the chat box, you can type in your question, and then at the end of her presentation, we'll allow people to unmute themselves if you want to actually ask your question in person. And this is Dr. Pamela Thomas. Sorry, I always forget to tell who I am. Take it away, Mary.
Hello all. As mentioned, our topic today is Treasure Troves of the Past, digging into cataloging local history. I am Mary Cornell, a cataloger here at the Cataloging Maintenance Center. Our agenda today includes discovering historical treasures, local history cataloging, genealogical cataloging, and my list of resources. So you've just received a lovely donation from a patron. Some of the items in your donation look like they might be of local interest, but you're trying to determine what to sort into that category and what to put into the general collection. The good news is that there are a plethora of historical treasures that fall into the category of local history. They include items such as church histories and church directories, school yearbooks, local cookbooks, city ordinances, census records, plat maps, cemetery records, and much more. Also, just a quick note about some of the records in this presentation. Some of the records were created before the update in OCLC bibliographic formats and standards to the 340 subfield P of the inclusion of the subfield 2 RDA ILL, and hence in some of the 340 subfield P fields, that subfield is not included. So just to help with that confusion. So our first record, the first item we're going to look at is a church directory for the First Federated Church in Peoria, Illinois. Church directories may come to you from the beginning of their creation, or like this one, where as a cataloger, it wasn't clear when the directory for the First Federated Church was initially created. As such, this directory was cataloged as a single directory or as a monograph. To catalog this directory, the cataloger, i.e. myself, used information provided in the introduction to create the title in the 245 field. While as a cataloger, you could have used the cover to create the title normally, I felt the cover title didn't properly display what the item was about. To make sure that patrons can still find this item by the cover title, I did add a varying form in a 246 field with the indicators 1-4 for a cover title. Lastly, looking at our subject headings, I added a 610 for the church itself, First Federated Church, Peoria, Illinois, with a subfield V for directories, as well as one with a subfield V for pictorial works. Some subject headings about the church and its congregation. Also, a couple of subject headings were added about Peoria history, and the record was finalized with a genre heading for directories. Next, we have a church history for the Antioch Missionary Baptist Church in Danville, Illinois, that is celebrating the church's 80th anniversary. In this record, we specifically want to look at a couple fields. Firstly, I want to talk about the binding of this volume. As found more often in local history and genealogical items, how an item is bound isn't necessarily your typical hardbound or paperbound binding. As per OCLC bibliographic formats and standards, in the 340 subfield L type of binding vocabulary, there are several types of bindings. In this record, I use the term spiral binding. In the 340 subfield L, which is also to be accompanied by a 563 field, which further explains the item is spiral bound on left side of volume. Also of note, this record includes a 610 corporate heading for the church, Antioch Missionary Baptist Church, Danville, Illinois, with a subfield X for history. It also includes subject fields for African American Baptists in Danville, Illinois, and Baptists in Danville, Illinois, to cover the population of parishioners who attend the church and to further establish where the parishioners attend church. Lastly, there is geographic subject headings of Danville, Illinois, and a subfield X for church history. This next example looks at a continuing resource record for Neponset grade school yearbooks. These yearbooks cover the school district's elementary and middle school grades. As you can see, there is a range of years pictured here that range from 1982 to 2002, as shown in the 362 field. Firstly, with multiple volumes, it felt imperative to add in 246 fields to assist with access points for varying titles. These included Neponset School, Neponset Elementary School, and Reflections. Also, the volumes varied in height, which is why in the 300 field and the subfield C, it includes a range of 27 to 28 centimeters. You'll also notice in the 588s that the 1989 to 1990 school yearbook pictured on the top in the photo was the consulted volume for the 245, and the last consulted volume in the 588 Indicator 1 was the 2001 to 2002 edition. Lastly, with this record, as the library sent just the selection of yearbooks from 1982 to 2002, and the school district goes under multiple names currently, I, as the cataloger, made the decision to catalog this as a completed serial. The school library who received the record can update it, of course, if more volumes are added later, but based on the volumes I had in hand, that was the cataloger's judgment I applied. The following record is for a plat book and farmer's directory for Bond County, Illinois, that was given a questionable date of 1921, a date that was found in the item, to 2016, because it also included a note with the item that had the second date of 2016, hence the publication date. This item includes a directory of farmers and business owners in Bond County, Illinois. Of note in this record, as is a mixture of both a directory and maps, you'll notice some of the subjects end with a subdivision of V maps, while others end with a subdivision of V directories. This volume, of course, is a mixture of both, but it did seem to cover more plat maps. When it comes to an item such as this, as a cataloger, I've seen plat maps cataloged as both an atlas and a book. Considering the content of this item, I chose to catalog it as an atlas, which means including fields such as an 034 field for coded cartographic mathematical data, an 052 field, the geographic classification, which means in this case is for Bond County, and a 255 field, cartographic mathematical data, which in this instance equates to scale not given. This item is part of a collection of materials that pertain to the Illinois Central Railroad bridge accident that happened in Grayville in 1918. This Adams and Westlake Company railroad lantern was on the bridge the night of the accident. As this item is realia, it has fields in the record that you might not find in others. For instance, there are multiple 340 fields that pertain to the materials of the item, which are glass and metal. Both 340s are terms found in the RDA Materials Concept Index for 340 Subfield A and OCLC Bibliographic Formats and Standards. Also, you will notice there's a 340 Subfield B field that records the dimensions of the lantern, which are 43 by 22 by 23 centimeters. There are also two 500s that relay information about the lantern's history and the organization who currently houses the lantern, the Groff Memorial Library. For our next item, we're going to look at cataloging a physical photograph. This photograph is of the Southern Illinois Editorial Association taken during the period of April 19th to 20th, 1929. As you can see, the photograph is rather large, measuring at 23 centimeters tall and 49 centimeters wide. So firstly, to understand how to catalog this item, I used the DCRMG, or Descriptive Cataloging of Rare Materials Graphics manual to assist, which you can find a PDF version of if you're interested in utilizing this. Looking at the record, I would like to note a few of the fields. So firstly, you'll notice the 130 field, noting the collection this item belongs to. Groff Memorial Library has received enough items from a local donor that they decided to create a specific collection called the Navigator Collection. This item also, like the last, includes a couple of 340 fields to note in the subfield A that the photograph is printed on paper, and then the subfield E is supported by a frame of wood and glass. There is a 500 note, which was provided by the library, that there is a transcription on the back of the photograph for NB seal. And also of note, I included a 588 indicator 0 to note that the title for the item was taken from the text on the photograph. The following item is a student journal magazine from Jefferson School located in Quincy, Illinois. It includes student writings, art, photography, and more. This item includes some of the normative fields for a continuing resource. For instance, there is a 310 field, noting the item was published monthly as determined by December, a 5A8 field with an indicator 1 for a latest issue consulted, December 1904, as well as a 3XX fields that note particular physical aspects of the item, multiple unit, illustration, portrait, etc. Some fields that are pertinent to add for this record are the subject fields. First, it's important to include a 610 or corporate field for the school itself with a subdivision V for periodicals. Also, because this item included a mixture of writings and art, it was pivotal to include subject headings about student prose, student verse, high school student writings, student newspapers, and periodicals, among others. Our next few items will be a mixture of local history and genealogical cataloging. The first item is a family cookbook entitled From Humble Beginnings, Magelli Family Cookbook. This cookbook is a mixture of family recipes passed down through the Magelli family and also includes history of the Magelli family. Of note in this record is firstly, as this record included cooking and family history, the subjects are cooking, Italian, cooking, subfield Z, Illinois, and Illinois, subfield V, genealogy. Also of note are the genre headings, family histories, and cookbooks, which both apply to the overall content. Lastly, I would like to point out the 60030 and the 703. The 60030 is a family heading for the overall general Magelli family name, but the 703 was created for the specific Magelli family line as found from information in the item. This item is a second volume of a death register for White County, Illinois. This particular volume includes deaths from 1902 to 1912. It includes the age, cause of death, place of birth, and place of death for each individual. Notably, this item was transcribed from its original form and includes the transcriber in the 245 subfield C, as well as in a 700 with a subfield E for transcriber. Also, this includes the subject heading, registers of birth, etc., and is subdivided by the location in subfield Z for Illinois and White County, and then subfield V for genealogy. Also included is a 651 for White County, Illinois, and a subfield V for genealogy. Lastly, there is included a genre heading that is specific for this item of death registers. The next item is a 1950 U.S. Census volume from Benton, Franklin County, Illinois, looking at district number 2810. This volume was published by Benton Public Library from information found on Ancestry.com. Of note in the fields in this record, I utilized rare books and manuscript sections, controlled vocabulary binding terms from my 340 subfield L, and used the term tapes as this was bound with tape on the left-hand side as noted in the 563. Also, as a cataloger, I had to make decisions about how to derive the subfield V for the census. I followed similar patterns from past census records. I included a 710 for this item, being an abridgment as it's only part of the whole census, as well as the Benton Public Library being the publisher. This genealogical item is a history of the Miller family of Piatt and DeWitt County, Illinois. Of note in this item, not included in the example, there is a genre heading for family histories. Also included are both the family names Miller and Mueller, as there are different direct references to each other, 100 and 500 references, though including both could be considered cataloger's judgment. Personally, as a cataloger, if you see the name change in the item, I would include both Miller and Mueller in this instance. Also, for a family name and the 600 with an first indicator of 1 and a second indicator of 0 is the first descendant, Andrew Miller, and as it shows through the subdivision X, this volume would include information about his family. Also included are subjects about registers of birth, which indicates the inclusion of familial birth and death information, and lastly, the inclusion of Piatt and DeWitt counties subdivided by genealogy. Our last item is a collection that focuses on 2 individuals from a family, the Margaret Helks, that has a variety of items, including realia, photographs, certificates, and more. As you can see from looking at the record, this is a small but varied collection. The collection's contents is described minimally in the 300, containing 3 photographs, 4 licenses, 3 diplomas, 1 certificate, 1 yearbook, 1 set of watch chains, and 1 nursing pin. Further down in the record, the 3XX fields include some physical characteristics, including the RDA materials descriptions found in the 340s. There is also a detailed 50500 field, which includes the full titles of all the items, physical size of the items in centimeters, as well as color content or other physical characteristics. This item is part of one of a larger genealogical collection, which is why there is also a 555 field to indicate that there is also a finding aid available for patrons to access in the library. Lastly, looking at the subject headings, the personal name headings for both Margarets were included, as well as subjects for realia, diplomas, nurses with subdivisions for the different items included, 651s for different locations that both Margarets worked, had licenses from, and genres for photographs and family histories. The resources for this presentation included descriptive cataloging for rare materials, graphics, or DCRMG, which can be accessed through various links via RBMS's website and OCLC's bibliographic formats and standards via their website. There were also in a couple of my records some of the 340s binding vocabulary that were taken from RBMS's vocabulary listing, which I've also included as a resource. And on the call today are Barb Scobie, Dr. Pamela Thomas, myself, Mary Cornell, Eric McKinney, Kat Anderberg, Blake Walter, Katie Roberts, and Andrea Joysta. any questions?
Thanks, Mary. This is Pam again. I've allowed people to unmute themselves if they'd like to do so. We don't have any questions yet. Just want to let you know that this presentation without the notes is currently in L2. And then after the presentation, Mary will upload the slides as a PDF with the notes. Okay, first question. Sarah S., are you creating name authority records for any of these headings? The screenshot showed some as blue linked and some not.
So the Magelli family name is actually the first family name I've ever created. And yes, I did create that one myself. So yes, if you have any family names that you have run across that you need created, that is something that the CMC can do. And that is something that if I have enough information about a name, I can do as well. That is something I'd actually like to do with the Margaret Hulks if I have gotten enough information about them eventually. I'd love to do that.
Yeah, and that's a challenge. You need to have enough information to be able to create a record.
Yes, yes, yep.
So she put, oh, we are a NACO library, so we do our own. I was just curious.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, yep.
Are you putting this whole recording somewhere?
Yes, this is always linked in L2 as well. Sorry, I
Oh.
forgot to mention that.
Thank you.
Yep. And hopefully that will be uploaded early next week. Gwen asks, what kind of information would you need? As much as you have, but I'll let Mary answer that.
Yeah, yep. As much as you can give us would be fantastic. But that's definitely something we can talk about, Gwen, if you want to go ahead and shoot us an email. Yeah. Yeah.
And she says, okay, thanks.
Awesome.
And just a reminder, this is our last fiscal year presentation, but we will be back in August, August 10th, reading the past, reading historical handwriting. And I have put all of our next fiscal year, so August through May, events in L2. So feel free to find those and register if you're interested. And they will again be the second Thursday of each month at 10 o'clock. And if you are registered in L2, I will always send out the link to the recording afterwards. The only one that will not be the second Thursday will be the February one. Our IHLS member day is on the second Thursday. So the February one will be the third Thursday. So does anybody else have any questions? Please put them in the chat box or go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question. And again, if you've named yourself just your first name or first initial, if you could rename yourself, that just really helps out when we are reconciling the Zoom roster with the L2 roster. So you can just hover over your name in the participants list and rename should be an option for you. Any other questions?
Okay.
Everybody's just quiet this Thursday.
That's okay.
Were there any other comments that you wanted to add, Mary?
Great question.
Send us all your local history and local genealogy to catalog.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's my favorite thing to do because I'm a big history nerd, but I'm also a big genealogy nerd. It's something I was raised on. So, yeah.
Okay, Jennifer says, is there a resource you would recommend with guides to cataloging realia and other items
Ooh,
like that which aren't covered in typical books?
that's a you question. I mean, I really appreciated DCRMG that
Mhm.
when I first got into cataloging the photographs that I showed in my presentation, even though DCRMG it's a little bit aged as a resource, it still had some really great tips and tricks within it. And there are different versions of DCRM as well, because the DCRMG does talk about like photographs and things like that as well. But there are different versions of that if you go onto RBMS's website. And they're all available as a PDF, which makes them very accessible. So
Yeah, I wish there were more resources for everything, really, especially non-book things.
mhm, mhm.
But there just aren't.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oop, okay, hang on. Got a couple. Vicky says, Mary, yeah, my dream job, genealogy and cataloging. And Renee says, genealogy nerds. And then Jennifer says, we've been scanning our local history binders, researched and made locally so that we have digital copies. Can we send the digital information, or is it better to send you the physical binders? Well, I guess which one do you want us to catalog?
I would say we could do either, honestly.
Yeah, but just let us know which one.
Yeah,
Are you just adding the physical
yeah,
copy to
mhm,
your catalog?
yeah.
But yeah, you can send the digital copy for us to catalog from.
Mhm.
Hang on.
Oh,
I just want a record in our system so people can see that we have it. Yeah, so just send us the digital copy, but make sure that we know that you have a physical copy and that that's really what we're cataloging.
mm,
Okay, so Gabriel says, what would the case be if the cataloging items aren't in English? You mean, would we catalog them if they're not in English? If that's your question, then yes.
yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yes, yep. We catalog items that aren't in English all the time. Yes, and that is a best practices for cataloging objects using RDA and Mark 21 for OLOC from OLOC is a great resource. That is very true.
Yes. Thanks, Nancy.
Mhm.
Did I miss something? No. Okay. And OLAC does have a lot of good resources for non-book
Mhm,
cataloging as well.
mhm. And I think I didn't include that in the presentation, but I've had a few other realia that I did not include within this presentation that I use that for as well. So
Okay.
Mm. Mm.
So anybody else have any other questions? Tracy says, so if you're cataloging yearbooks, is it a good idea to catalog those as serials if the name of the school stays the same? I would, and I don't think it
Yeah,
really matters if the name of the school doesn't
no,
stay the same, because
no,
you
I
can
don't.
just do a title change, right?
Yes, you can. You can. You can. And I mean, that example that I included within my presentation, it was cataloged as a serial. I
Yeah,
just,
because the screenshots didn't necessarily show the,
no,
yeah.
no,
Right.
I cataloged it as a completed serial because of what was sent to me. A lot of times when I do catalog yearbooks, I usually catalog them as an open-ended serial. So that's
Mhm.
one way to, it's not the precise term to put it, but
It's a continuing resource,
a
right?
continuing resource. Yeah, is a
Yeah.
continuing resource. Thank you. words.
Mhm. I know, they're hard.
As a continuing resource versus as a closed serial. So because names do change for yearbooks usually over time. You know, you might have it start in 1925 as one name, but then over, say, maybe 100 years, the name of the yearbook or the name of the school might even change.
Mhm.
So yes, yes.
Okay, any other questions? Oops, hang on, it's a long one. Oh, so Blake put at Jennifer Garden, one rule of thumb I encourage catalogers to follow with non-book materials is don't be afraid to get messy. Even if you're not an expert in cataloging that type of resource, the best way to learn is by doing. It's hard to make the time to catalog something difficult and unfamiliar, but completing those records is always rewarding by the time you're done. And remember, no catalog record is ever perfect. So as good as possible is always better than never cataloged. Very, very true. And
Yep.
you know, you can go in there and edit that record 1,000 times or more if you want to.
That's very true.
There's no limit on that.
Very, very, very true.
Okay, any other questions? No, gonna say. All right, I'm gonna stop the recording.